Hey there friend, welcome back to my channel. I am Dawn if you are new here, and today I'm going to be sharing with you some of my family and my customers' favorite sourdough inclusions and flavors. So we have some sweet ones and some savory ones, and I know you guys are going to love them too. So we're going to just jump right into it and start prepping some of the inclusions and get them all mixed up. And I'm going to show you how much fun sourdough inclusions can be. The first thing that I'm going to get going is the caramelized onions. So this is one of the more new recipes I've tried and we absolutely loved it. It is caramelized onion and Gruyere cheese. And if you like onions and cheese, you're gonna love this flavor. I am gonna get it all chopped up in larger chunks, and that way I can caramelize them and they can cool before I add them to the rest of the ingredients. While that goes, I'm going to start prepping some of the cheeses I'll be using. So for jalapeno cheddar, I've got some sharp cheddar, and for the onion, we obviously have the Gruyere cheese, and we do have an Italian herbs and cheese, which I normally use Colby Jack, but I forgot to pick some up apparently, and so I'm just going to use cheddar and it'll be just as great. And some Parmesan as well. But I'm going to get those prepped. I like to do half shredded, half cubed as far as cheese goes in sourdough bread. Okay, I am weighing out my jalapeno peppers, and I use these pickled ones, and I use the hot just because I think my customers like the spice, but personally I'd prefer more of the mild just for the jalapeno flavor and less spice. So if that is you, I would use mild. You can certainly use fresh jalapenos, but sometimes they're really, really hot, sometimes they're not. They're kind of more of a wild card. So I typically use this. And I do try to dry out I put it on a paper towel to get the moisture out, and I will use another paper towel to kind of help soak up the extra moisture. of these bowls have 450 grams of all-purpose flour, 50 grams of a hard wheat that I just milled, and the one sweet loaf has hard white wheat instead of hard red wheat. But if you don't have a mill, you can use regular all-purpose, or if you want to add a little whole wheat, whatever you want, you can just do all-purpose wood. We do like the flavor it gives, but of course, if you don't have a mill, that doesn't work out that way. So all of them have the same amount of flour and then 10 grams of salt. And I'm going to add some water, and then I'm going to put the leaven in. And while they all have the same amount of flour, the water does differ between some of them, just to adjust for the moisture in the inclusions and stuff. So take note of that, but we'll get those mixed up. It'll sit an hour, and then we can add all the inclusions. Okay, it's been a little over an hour, and so I'm gonna start adding the inclusions. So first up, I'm going to do the onion. So I'm just gonna, they have cooled. Put those in there. And then again, I have half shredded Gruyere cheese and half cubed. The next one is a sweet loaf, and it's a little bit different, but I promise it is a delicious combo. And we call it the red, white, and blue loaf, and it has white chocolate chips, dried cranberries, and fresh blueberries. And it is delicious. I know a lot of people do the lemon blueberry, and I did it once. Maybe it just needed a little bit more or something, but it was good, but I think this one has a little more pizzazz, which I like. Now we're gonna do the jalapeno cheddar. Let's toss all those in. It's good to kind of break up the clumps. This next one is the Italian herbs and cheese. So I have 4 grams of dried basil and 3 grams of Italian seasoning, along with well, right now it's cheddar, but I normally use Colby Jack, and a little bit of Parmesan too. That. And then the last and final one is a sweet one, which we love, and it is a double chocolate. So it has Dutch processed cocoa powder, a little bit of sugar, and then I'm going to add now the milk chocolate chips. Now this one is going to feel a little bit more of a drier dough, so it's going to be tempting to add more water, and definitely wet your hands when you do it, so it'll add just a tiny bit more, but yeah, you have to be careful with it because it will end up with a gummy center. It can do that more easily, so you don't add too much water to that one. Now we can mix them all up. now they can sit and we will do some stretch and folds over the next couple hours, and then they will ferment and we will check back later. Okay, so I'm just checking the dough and a couple are for sure ready to be shaped. I will check some of them again, but for reference, I mixed them up around 8:50 this morning, and it is now 3:10 p.m. And so I am going to, this Italian herbs and cheese one is nice and jiggly. So I'm going to shape it up. Or this is the pre-shape. Get it nice and tight. And then the caramelized onion and Gruyere one is also nice and jiggly. Pulls away from the edge easy. This one, I think I had a little bit more oil in the onions than I sometimes make it, and so I made a much wetter dough, which is okay if your all-purpose flour can handle it, which mine is pretty good. I use the Costco all-purpose flour, but it is a little sticky or a little bit wetter than I was planning. So you could either add a little extra flour or add a little less water if you have a lot more oil in your onions, or just be careful not to put too much. I believe my jalapeno cheddar is ready. Since some of them are a little bit wetter, definitely going to stretch these out a little more to develop some tension. We will do this one. If you have a favorite inclusion recipe, or if you have some favorite things to add to your sourdough bread, I would love to hear them in the comments. Definitely interested in what you guys like to put in your bread. And then the last one is the chocolate. And I'm going to leave it a little bit longer because it normally takes just a little bit longer to proof. So these will bench rest for 10 minutes. This will wait a little bit. And then we will final shape them and put them in the fridge. Well, it is the next morning now, and they cold fermented in the fridge overnight. And I am going to put these in the Dutch oven. They are preheating at 450 right now for a while. And I'm going to do the sweet loaves first. Time for breakfast. So we've got the red, white, and blue and the double chocolate. We give a nice score. It's just about 200 degrees, so 190 to 200, especially a little bit more for inclusions. I really recommend having a thermometer of some sort for breads with inclusions, especially because sometimes they are going to take they're going to take longer than your regular, just classic sourdough bread. And it just makes inclusion breads a lot easier because you can really just make sure that they are done on the inside. So we will take these out. There's the red, white, and blue. And the chocolate. Reusing these papers one more time. So a lot of times I will bake them a few minutes longer, maybe even up to 5-7 minutes longer with the lid on, and then depending when after I take the lid off, sometimes I'll even bake them another minute or two longer in the second part of the bake. So that's why I recommend a thermometer. But we're going to get the rest of these baked up, and then I will show you the finished products. So we got Italian herbs and cheese and the onion one next. All right, the last one's done baking. They've cooled for a bit to really make sure the centers are finished cooking and done. And we're going to cut into them. I'm going to show you the crumb of them all. I will say sometimes maybe I would just push it with how many inclusions I can add, but they're not always like, they can be a little bit flatter, which as long as everything was done right, the insides are still perfect. But I'll cut in and show you what they look like. They smell amazing. Okay, we're going to start with the jalapeno cheddar. No, Italian herbs and cheese. Okay, ready? So good. Now we did actually have some of this red, white, and blue for breakfast, but I will cut in the center so you can see. You can see the little bit of white chocolate chips melted, blueberries, cranberries. This one is so good. Okay, on to the next one. Let's do caramelized onion. I kind of want a piece of this actually. That smells so good. Like French onion soup, but better. Wow, delicious. Okay, go to the double chocolate. Nice and fluffy. If you're a chocolate fan, you're gonna love this. Like I said, when it was proofing, it needed a little bit more time than the other ones. And make sure you give it to it so it can get that fluffiness. Otherwise, it could be a more dense loaf. Okay, last but not least, the classic jalapeno cheddar. Oh, yeah. That smells so good. They all smell so good. I wish you could smell them through the camera, but you can see all the cheese, the little jalapenos, the air pockets. So delicious. Well, I'm going to have a piece, and I'll probably have to share with some family, which will be great. But make sure to tell me in the comments your favorite sourdough inclusion, and especially if you have a new idea I could try, would love to hear it. But that is all I have for you. Hope you found a little inspiration for ideas you can try with your sourdough bread, and hopefully you find a new flavor that you like. But until next time, bye friends.